Mundubile dumps PF for Tonse Alliance. No regrets about leaving in a move that's shaking Zambia's opposition politics. Brian Mundubile has officially walked away from the Patriotic Front, and he says he has no regrets. Instead, he's setting his sights on leadership within the Tonse Alliance. What drove this decision? What does it mean for PF's future, and could this redraw the opposition power map? Let's break it down. Good day, viewers. Welcome to another edition of the InspirAfrica Official. I'm Nakash. Well, what a week it's been in Zambian politics. Just when you think you've seen it all, something happens that reminds you that in this game, loyalty is often just a word written in sand, waiting for the tide to come in. And speaking of tides turning, our lead story today is one that has sent shockwaves through the corridored halls of Parliament and ignited fierce debate across the nation. Picture this. A man who once stood shoulder to shoulder with the Patriotic Front, who defended its policies, who wore its colors with pride, suddenly, without warning, crosses the floor. Not quietly. Not apologetically. But boldly. Defiantly. With his head held high and not a single regret in his voice. What drives a seasoned politician to abandon the ship he helped build? What whispers in the corridors of power convinced him that his future lay elsewhere? Was this a calculated political maneuver months in the making, or a decision born of frustration, of broken promises, of doors closed in his face? And here's the question that has everyone talking. When Brian Mundubile announced his defection from the Patriotic Front to join the Tonse Alliance, was he chasing power, principle, or something else entirely? What does it say about the state of the PF when one of its prominent voices declares no regrets about leaving? What cracks in the foundation does this reveal? And most crucially, is Mundubile just the first domino to fall, or is this an isolated act of political rebellion? The revelation came to light in spectacular fashion. Factual foundation, background and timeline. The revelation came to light during a press conference that caught many political observers completely off guard. Brian Mundubile, the former Patriotic Front Member of Parliament and a figure long associated with the party's inner circle, stood before cameras and microphones and made an announcement that would dominate headlines for days. The setting was Lusaka, at a venue hastily arranged but packed with journalists who had caught wind that something significant was about to unfold. This was mid-January 2026, a time when political realignments were already beginning to stir ahead of the next electoral cycle. Mundubile had been notably absent from recent PF gatherings. Those paying close attention had noticed the silence, no statements defending the party, no appearances at rallies, no social media posts echoing the PF line. The first whispers of discontent had begun circulating weeks earlier when sources close to the politician suggested he was evaluating his options. But it was more than just absence. There had been tensions. Reports emerged of disagreements within the PF leadership, of Mundubile being sidelined in key decisions, of his influence waning while others rose. Some insiders claimed he had grown frustrated with the direction of the party under its current leadership. Then came the confirmation. On January 15, 2026, Mundubile sent shockwaves through Zambian politics by formally announcing his departure from the Patriotic Front. But he didn't stop there. In the same breath, he revealed his new political home, the Tonse Alliance, a coalition positioning itself as an alternative force in Zambian politics. The Tonse Alliance welcomed him with open arms, issuing a statement praising his courage and principled stand. Meanwhile, the PF scrambled to respond, with party officials expressing everything from disappointment to outright anger. The chronology was swift and decisive, weeks of quiet maneuvering, followed by a sudden, public break. No gradual transition. No diplomatic exit. Just a clean cut, executed with the precision of someone who had made peace with his decision long before making it public. Direct evidence, quotes and testimony. When Mundubile stepped up to the podium, his first words set the tone for everything that followed. "I want to be absolutely clear with the Zambian people," he began, his voice steady, unwavering. "This decision was not made lightly. But it was made with a clear conscience and with the interests of my constituents at heart." He paused, scanning the room of reporters before continuing. "I have spent years within the Patriotic Front. Years of service, years of dedication. But I can no longer, in good conscience, remain in a party that has lost its way. A party that has forgotten the very people it claims to represent. When pressed by journalists about the timing of his departure, Mundubile didn't hesitate. Why now? Because enough is enough. You reach a point where you realize that your voice is not being heard, where your concerns are being dismissed, where the values you stood for are being compromised. That point came for me, and I made my choice. One reporter asked directly, "Do you regret leaving the PF?" Mundubile's response was unequivocal. No. No regrets. Not a single one. If anything, my only regret is not having the courage to make this move sooner. The Patriotic Front I joined is not the Patriotic Front that exists today. And I will not be complicit in what it has become. Another journalist pushed further, some are calling this a betrayal. How do you respond to those accusations? Betrayal? Mundubile repeated, a slight edge entering his voice. I would ask those making such accusations to look in the mirror. Who has betrayed whom? I have been consistent in my values, in my commitment to the people. It is the party leadership that has betrayed the trust of Zambians. It is they who have abandoned the principles we once stood for together. When asked about his decision to join the Tonse Alliance specifically, Mundubile became more animated. The Tonse Alliance represents what politics should be about: collaboration, inclusivity, genuine concern for the welfare of ordinary Zambians. I have had extensive discussions with the leadership, and I am convinced that this is where I can make the most meaningful contribution. A particularly pointed question came from a PF-aligned media outlet. Isn't this just about positioning yourself for personal political gain? Mundubile took a moment before responding. If this were about personal gain, I would have stayed where I was. I would have kept quiet, collected my benefits, and waited my turn. But that's not leadership. Leadership is having the courage to stand up when things go wrong, even when it costs you personally. And yes, this decision will cost me. But it's a price I'm willing to pay. In a statement released shortly after the press conference, the Tonse Alliance leadership welcomed Mundubile with effusive praise. We are honored to welcome Brian Mundubile into our fold. His track record speaks for itself. This is a man of principle, a man who has demonstrated that he puts country before party. We need more leaders like him. The PF's response was markedly different. Party Secretary General issued a terse statement that read, in part, Mr. Mundubile's decision is disappointing but not surprising. Those who lack patience and discipline often seek greener pastures elsewhere. We wish him well, but we also remind him that the door he has closed behind him is not one that easily reopens. Deeper analysis, implications and reactions. Mundubile's defection raises profound questions about the current state of Zambian politics and, more specifically, about the internal health of the Patriotic Front. Political analyst Dr. Chanda Mwansa offered her perspective. What we're witnessing is not just one man leaving one party for another. This is symptomatic of deeper fractures within the PF. When a figure of Mundubile's stature feels compelled to leave, and does so without regret, it suggests serious problems with party cohesion and leadership. The timing is particularly significant. With elections on the horizon, defections of this magnitude can shift momentum and reshape political calculations. The Tonse Alliance, still working to establish itself as a credible alternative, gains not just a member but a symbol, proof that it can attract established political figures. From a legal and procedural standpoint, Mundubile's move also raises interesting questions. Under Zambian law, his parliamentary seat status could potentially be affected, though the specifics depend on various constitutional interpretations. Legal experts have noted that the floor-crossing provisions could come into play, potentially triggering a by-election. Opposition voices have been quick to weigh in. The UPND, currently in government, issued a statement noting that the disintegration of the PF continues while calling for all politicians to focus on serving the people rather than political musical chairs. But not everyone sees Mundubile's move in a positive light. Some PF loyalists have been scathing in their criticism. One MP, speaking on condition of anonymity, said, "This is about ambition, pure and simple. He wasn't getting what he wanted, so he threw a tantrum and left. It's childish. Others within the PF have been more reflective. A former cabinet minister acknowledged, Brian's departure should make us pause and think. Are we listening to our members? Are we staying true to our founding principles? These are questions we must honestly confront. The ambiguities here are numerous. Is Mundubile's claim of principled departure genuine, or is this indeed a calculated career move? Can the Tonse Alliance truly offer what the PF could not, or is this coalition itself prone to the same internal dynamics? And perhaps most intriguingly, will others follow? This last question is the one keeping PF leadership up at night. Political defections often come in waves. If Mundubile's move emboldens others who have been sitting on the fence, the PF could find itself facing an exodus. The broader systemic concern is what this says about party loyalty and political stability in Zambia. When parties become vehicles for personal advancement rather than platforms for genuine ideological conviction, the entire democratic ecosystem suffers. Voters become cynical. Trust erodes. And the focus shifts from governance to gamesmanship. Yet there's a counter-argument, perhaps Mundubile's defection represents democracy working as it should. Politicians should not be prisoners of party labels. If a party changes direction or betrays its values, shouldn't its members have the right? Indeed, the obligation to seek alternatives? These are not easy questions to answer, and they speak to the complexity of the moment Zambian politics finds itself in. And so, viewers, that's where we stand. Brian Mundubile has made his choice, burned his bridges with the Patriotic Front, and planted his flag with the Tonse Alliance. No regrets, he says. Time will tell whether that confidence is justified. Thank you so much for watching this edition of InspirAfrica Official. This is a story that's far from over, and we'll be following every development as it unfolds. I want to hear from you. What do you think about Mundubile's decision? Is this principled politics or opportunistic ambition? Do you think more defections are coming? Drop your thoughts in the comments section below. Let's get a conversation going. We'll be back tomorrow with more news, more analysis, and more of the stories that shape our continent. Until then, this is Nakash, reminding you to stay informed, stay engaged, and never stop asking questions. Take care, and see you in the next one.